Let's say you already own a newer iPhone or another good smartphone. So why spend more than $500 on the Pocket 3? Can't a modern smartphone gimbal do almost everything the Pocket 3 can do and even more? For example, the Flow 2 Pro here. Probably the best gimbal you can buy right now, costs only $160. So better to save your money? It's not that simple. Both setups have their pros and cons. And you'll be surprised, because some things aren't so obvious. Today I'll show you the 5 most important advantages of both setups in this comparison. And stay tuned until the end, because all the differences are important. But before we get to the 5 strengths of the two devices, we should take a look at an important topic that certainly plays a major role in this comparison: image quality. However, the image quality only fits into this comparison to a limited extent, as it depends heavily on which smartphone is used. The Pocket 3 has a 1-inch sensor and takes great shots that also look very cinematic due to the slight background blur. And purely intuitively, you would say that it easily beats every smartphone currently available when it comes to image quality. But it's not that clear-cut. I made a comparison with the iPhone 16 Pro a few months ago and wouldn't say that the Pocket 3 has by far the superior camera, but you can see for yourself later. Just watch the comparison after this video. So assuming you have a good smartphone, what are the advantages and disadvantages of a good smartphone gimbal like the Flow 2 Pro compared to the Pocket 3? One advantage of the Pocket 3 in this comparison is certainly its smaller form factor and the fact that it can be activated a little faster. But as you can see here, the Pocket 3 is not much smaller than the folded Flow 2 Pro. And this is the smaller standard handle without the extra battery. But of course, it's a little smaller and also lighter. The Flow 2 Pro can also be activated extremely quickly. Simply clamp the smartphone in and bend the gimbal arm upwards. It's even quicker if you have attached your iPhone to the very useful magnetic phone mount, for example. But activation is of course still faster with the Pocket 3. You simply turn the screen to the side and the device is ready to shoot. That's a cool solution. The Flow 2 Pro not only comes with an integrated selfie stick, but also has a stable tripod integrated into the handle. If you want to use the Pocket 3 on a tripod or in combination with a selfie stick, you need to bring the additional accessories with you. And the Flow 2 Pro and pretty much every other modern smartphone gimbal can do something the Pocket 3 can't: switch to portrait mode. This means you can easily turn the smartphone upwards and shoot vertically in full resolution. The Pocket 3 can't do that, even though, as you can see here, it also has a mode for vertical shots. But this is just a digital crop. That is, the shot is cropped to achieve a vertical format, which of course results in reduced image quality and resolution. Vertical shots are only possible at up to 3K. For me, this is one of the biggest shortcomings of the Pocket 3, and I would like DJI to solve this in its successor. Before we take a closer look at the tracking, we should have a look at the range of movement of the axis. And this is where the Pocket 3 has an interesting strength. In the tilt axis, the gimbal of the Pocket 3 has a very large freedom of movement. For example, it can be rotated completely upwards, while the tilt axis of the Flow 2 Pro is relatively limited, as is the case with most other smartphone gimbals. But, and this must also be said, Insta360 has come up with something special here: the free tilt mode. Just pull out the selfie stick and turn it to the left, and the camera has complete freedom of movement in the tilt axis too. And that's not all. If we look at the other two axes, the Flow 2 Pro shows a great strength in this comparison. It not only has more freedom of movement in the roll axis than the Pocket 3, but also, and this is much more important, in the pan axis. The Flow 2 Pro has no limitations here. You place it anywhere and the camera will be able to follow you in any direction, as the gimbal can rotate 360 degrees without any limitations. Not so with the Pocket 3. While the camera can still be turned relatively far to the right, the limit to the left is reached very quickly. You should be aware of this if you attach the Pocket 3 to a tripod and want to track yourself. Otherwise, the camera will quickly lose you. Tracking works very well with both devices. As you can see here, both devices are able to track a subject without any problems. However, if this were a pure tracking comparison, the Flow 2 Pro would win. In the very efficient Tracking Plus mode, it tracks more responsively and can also recognize subjects after a longer period of time if they get lost. The Pocket 3 gives up after a few seconds and considers the subject lost. In practice, however, these two differences hardly play a role in my opinion. The Pocket 3 also tracks sufficiently well, and you can adjust the framing for tracking on both devices. In my opinion, the display is more important. If you are filming yourself, you can check the framing on the Pocket 3 using the display and can film yourself in good quality when vlogging, for example. Of course, this is also possible with a smartphone gimbal. The display is even much larger than the small display of the Pocket 3. But this only applies if you are filming yourself with the selfie camera, and this usually has a significantly reduced image quality. For high quality shots, you should use the back camera, but then you no longer have a display to check the framing. But Insta360 has also come up with a solution here. This small mirror on the gimbal head here corresponds to the iPhone's main camera in terms of framing. And it works surprisingly well. So although you don't have a display, you do have a small mirror that helps you find the right framing. However, if you're not filming yourself, but other subjects, then the situation is of course completely different. Because the small display of the Pocket 3 can in no way keep up with a smartphone display. It's quite small and it's sometimes difficult to tell whether a subject is in focus or not. So unless you are filming yourself, the larger display is a huge advantage when using the gimbal in combination with a smartphone. Apart from tracking, the main function of a gimbal is of course stabilization. And while the Flow 2 Pro is definitely a good smartphone gimbal when it comes to stabilization, it can't quite keep up with the Pocket 3. Here, the gimbal is optimally matched to the camera and does not have to stabilize devices of different sizes. It's clearly also an advantage that it does not have to stabilize such a large weight. On the other hand, I'm surprised how well the Flow 2 Pro can keep up here. I would have expected a bigger difference, and if you don't shake the cameras extremely, there is hardly any noticeable difference. Incidentally, both gimbals have several stabilization modes: a lock mode, and, of course, various shooting modes, including, of course, the photo mode. And this is a very important point to bear in mind. A gimbal is not a typical accessory for photography, but you may also want to take photos with your camera between video recordings. And the Pocket 3 is only suitable for photos to a limited extent, at least in terms of resolution, because its maximum resolution for photos is 9 megapixels, which is pretty low these days. Of course, this does not apply if you use the Flow 2 Pro with your smartphone. Depending on the smartphone, the quality of the photos will usually be clearly superior to the Pocket 3. And that's not all. The Flow 2 Pro also offers a very special photo mode. It can take 360 photos, so photos like a 360 camera. These can even be animated automatically. But I think the Pocket 3 was simply not made for photos. Its real strength is the overall concept. Small, good image quality, good stabilization, and easy to use. Simply a cool device, which is loved by many for a reason, and which is particularly suitable for vlogging. DJI has also repeatedly added new features via updates over time. Since the last update, for example, there is also a 2x digital zoom with improved image quality. But that brings us to what is perhaps the Flow 2 Pro's greatest strength in this comparison. Even though the Pocket 3 has some interesting features, it's of course very limited compared to a smartphone gimbal when it comes to software features. The Insta360 app alone offers a number of special features that can be used in combination with the gimbal. For example, there is an integrated teleprompter, a dedicated tracking mode for recordings with a high zoom factor, and of course the option to edit and share the recordings immediately on your smartphone without any further transfer step. If required, you can also use the familiar iPhone camera app and have a stabilized image, and can also be tracked in the iPhone app, as the Flow 2 Pro with Apple Dock Kit supports Apple's integrated tracking functionality. This also works with most other iPhone apps that use the camera, including social media apps such as TikTok and of course video conferencing apps. You can therefore use the Flow 2 Pro to track yourself in a Teams video conference or shoot a video with the TikTok app using the gimbal and its tracking function. Of course, this is not possible with the Pocket 3. If you have an Android smartphone, you can connect this AI tracker, and the gimbal will also track you in all camera apps under Android. In other words, whether Android or iPhone, if you need stabilized shots and a tracking function for your favorite social media apps or video conferencing, the Flow 2 Pro has a clear advantage. And as mentioned at the beginning, it has another decisive advantage. At $160, it's significantly cheaper. You can find links to both devices in the video description. If you use the link for the Flow 2 Pro, you will also receive a magnetic phone mount as a free gift. But sure, what is missing in this comparison is a comparison of the image quality or the possibility to use different lenses. But of course, these differences depend a lot on which smartphone you use. So check out my comparison between the iPhone 16 Pro and the Pocket 3 if you're interested. Personally, I think both devices are great, and depending on your needs, one or the other may be more suitable. I hope I was able to clearly explain the differences today. Give me a like as feedback if you found the video interesting. There will be more videos on the Pocket 3 and the Flow 2 Pro. So stay tuned and see you next time.